everybody, welcome to another episode of B is for Build. Today we're here working on Oscar's car. What's going on today? Oscar's going to be replacing his subframe and building a tube frame chassis, the tube frame front end, not a whole chassis, but a tube frame front end for his Mustang. So if you remember, it got hit really hard. We bent it back using my truck and some toe straps, and we got things in the right spot. So now they need to be reinforced and rebuilt, starting with a new subframe and then coming up and building all the rest of the connecting stuff to hold things like headlights, fenders, radiators, all that good stuff. It's gonna be really cool. Oscar's gonna do a great job on this because he's good at this type of stuff. So, stay tuned. Before I get down to work, I want to take a second out to thank today's sponsor. Today's episode is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. Are you guys tired of cartoonish looking games? Not every RPG game has to be all cartoonish and cutesy looking. Raid Shadow Legends will take you to a world of dark fantasy realism. Now you can build your best squad within a specific faction and fight in the faction wars. And Raid is free to play and available on both mobile and PC, which is great. So use my links down below to download Raid yourself on either your mobile or your PC. Raid has 16 different factions, and each faction is made up of a bunch of different unique champions. My favorite faction is the Bannerlords. They're made up of a bunch of smaller territories, so their champions are really diverse. And they've got a ton of great champions like Cysthalia and Cillian the Lucky. But my favorite is Lugan the Steadfast because he has a ton of HP and does a ton of damage, so he's a great tank. And what I really like about this game personally is that you can keep challenging yourself in different areas of the game. There's always a different tournament going on, and you can compete against the entire Raid community, and there's PvP, and there's just always different people out there to battle and to try and win over. And I also just love the amount of different champions that are in the game. It's like almost an endless list of different champions to play through. So what are you guys waiting for? Go to the video description, click on the link, and if you're a new player, you're gonna get 100,000 silver and one free champion, the Lightsworn, who is an epic champion. And this added bonus is going to be waiting for you right here. So good luck, and I'll see you there. And keep in mind, guys, the rewards are only available for the next 30 days and only for new players. Thanks to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this episode. Now let's get down to work.
So I'm going to go ahead and start off by changing all the small parts, like these engine mounts, this steering rack, anything I can take off and bolt onto this new frame. I'm going to go ahead and transfer it over. Try not to get it too heavy before we bolt it onto the bottom.
That's weird. So they like hit threads or something?
Yeah, it looks like they crimp them afterwards just to keep them locked in.
Wow. All right, guys, so I just showed up. Oscar has removed, he said we had a little bit of camera issues, so I'm not sure how much time lapse you'll see, but it's pretty simple to explain. Old bad subframe is out. He's saying these massive bolts have like this crazy crimping on them that make them really, really hard to get out, but he's got them out. And then, so now is a moment of truth, is putting the new subframe, or our new used subframe that we got on eBay, taking this guy and installing it back on the car, because if the frame rails are right, then obviously it'll go in there right. If they're not, then, well, back on the struggle bus and we start tying stuff to trucks again. So, all right, let's see how it goes.
Alright, so I took a few minutes to straighten out this rod. I'm going to mention it a few times. This is not going to stay. This is just so we don't have a tire that is kicked over as we're trying to drive. Yes, you can see there's a huge glob of weld. That was just to heat it up and make it hot enough to bend, because we do not have anything strong enough to bend half-inch steel. So we have a success with the subframe. Everything matched up and bolted up to exactly where it needed to be. Now we just got to come back in and make some supports to reinforce this front end. I threw the radiator in there just to see how far forward I need to go. It's looking good. Alright, so next we're going to start plating in all these pockets and make some extra supports, and that'll give us a place to attach our front bash bar.
right, I'm back, and this Mustang is looking phenomenal. Oscar did a great job, made a lot of progress yesterday. So you can see he's got all this stuff built out, and I was talking with him right now. The game plan is to start coming off of here to connect up with the lower subframe, and then he's going to leave a little extra out here that we can trim back. You guys that have been watching for a long time saw we did the same thing with the Datsun. You just build these like long shin breaker bars out here, and then as the car starts to finish, you know how long your front end needs to be, you just trim them back up to length. So this looks really, really good, and he's got a great starting point, which is really cool. And I mean, obviously the front subframe fitting perfectly means that those frame rails are not bent back there, which is great. So kind of basically building it like you would like a Formula D car or something like that. One thing worth mentioning is kind of a bummer is this wheel is a little extra cambered because that strut is blown out. If there's any coilover company that wants to sponsor us on this build, let us know. We'd love to work with you. These builds, when we do this body swap conversion, really do, it would be great if we could have a coilover set, but it is an apocalypse car, so we might just replace just that strut if we have to, and you know, lower it our own ways, but it'd be better to have some coilovers. All right, so we're gonna let Oscar just set him free, and he'll start building these things out. Oscar just wrapped up the extension of the two main frame rails coming out. You can see he kind of boxed this whole thing in to send the bolts down through, and they line up with the front subframe. So next thing that he's going to jump into is extending from here and bending out down to over here, and then what we can do after that is kind of start to tie in and build upper and around the radiator to hold the top of the radiator and get closer to holding things like the fenders and the headlights. But first you want to go from up here down to around here somewhere. Time for an update on Oscar's progress. So he's got the fuse box mounted here, the ECU mounted here, and these are both really sturdy and well done. And next piece is your core support.
Radiator core support.
Radiator support / core support?
Yep.
Radiator's part of the core, I'm gonna call it. No, anyway, so are you thinking about, we talked about going from here across, are you still thinking that?
Yeah, so I'm gonna make some brackets that'll bolt down right here.
Yep.
Then I'll have a bar that comes up and over.
Up and over and back down on the other side, and it's gonna be detachable?
Yeah, it's gonna be detachable.
Cool. Oscar just wrapped up the upper radiator support and then this crossbar right here. So this bar bolts in and out to make it easier for the engine to go in and out. Got super creative with the dimple die set here. Eastwood sent us a dimple die set, so shout out to those guys. Those look pretty badass. Oscar said he wants to do a lot of dimple dies on this car, so look for more of those in the future coming into this engine bay. This looks really, really cool. So Oscar, in a matter of days, has taken what was a completely, basically destroyed front end of a car, and then, although we did eyeball some of the geometry, it's well within adjustability of our suspension. So you can see on suspension, you know, you have so many adjustable things. If anything's like 1/8 of an inch off here or there, we'll adjust it back out with the suspension and it'll be good enough. That's part of the fun of building apocalypse cars, is you get to just build things good enough, have fun, keep going, and just, like, you know, build stuff fast and have a good time. So it's like a Thrasher car or whatever, it's good enough. And this is just quite a transformation. I mean, now got a real frame, you got stuff to build off of for the front end swap. So much good stuff here. Oscar, I have lots of faith in you. Should be no problem.
Nope.
We do need that alternator to come in. The alternator was destroyed. Yeah. We are definitely going to need an alternator to run this thing. I mean, you can run a car without an alternator. It's not going to run very long though.
Yeah, because in order to run your alternator, you need or in order to run your water pump, you need to have your alternator.
Right, without our, without the belt. You don't really need the alternator, but you do need the belt.
You need the belt.
So hopefully that'll come in time. But getting started right here, you're gonna go ahead, I assume, and tear down this front end awesomeness that you built in the last episode. Yep. And then try and plop your engine in there and get it bolted into the engine mounts.
Yeah, we'll see how hard that is now that we have all this front end.
But brand new subframe, not brand new used front subframe though. So the engine mounts are going to be exactly where they need to be for the engine, and the engine will be sitting in the car straight this time, which is a huge improvement.
For sure.
All right. The engine is back in the Mustang.
Finally.
Finally. There's a little in and out. It got a little bit redundant, so we didn't really show it all on camera, but what was the trick you found out?
The torque converter, you need to spin it off the engine.
Spin the torque converter off the engine, and then, yep. So now Oscar knows how to do that. So engine's in, now he's gonna go for the intake manifold, getting that back on, and that'll kind of get this whole engine button back up. All right, Oscar's got his engine back in his car and a bunch of more stuff kind of putting together, and then we got the cooling systems on here with his tube frame kind of supports and everything like that. Like, let's walk through some of the things They kind of got changed and added. Brake lines, I know we ordered new brake lines.
Yep, we got those put in.
So the brake lines are put in up here. New alternator, that one got destroyed. You guys remember in the wreck when this frame, well, this frame rail's not really this frame rail anymore. This frame rail hit the alternator, killed it, so we got a new one of those in there. You can't see it, but underneath the alternator is the oil cooler, which got totally crushed, so we replaced that. And then we replaced this thing, and it's kind of weird because it's like it's a factory replacement part, but it did not want to seat really well on the old plastic parts, so now we're going straight from metal to rubber with just a traditional hose clamp, which will be okay. Oh, and one thing that we didn't mention is this is all new right here too. So you got the new radiator fan, and AC condenser. We bought all of these just used off of eBay in like one whole package, so that's all brand new as well. That's a really cool thing about this car is we are going to retain the air conditioning, so it's pretty much going to be as simple as plug that into the new condenser and then refill the system, recharge the system with the refrigerant, and we should have AC in this car, which will be awesome because it's in the middle of summer when we're building this thing. We don't have coolant in the system yet. That's some pieces we need to work on, and we'll go through that in a second. But for now, I think we should try and crank it and see if this thing will start. We have the MAF is just kind of hanging out right here, so it's not going to run great if it runs, but it would be really cool to see if, you know, engine out, engine back in, engine out again, and back in again, and out, and you know, in and out, all that. Does it still work? Oscar did it, so I think it will, but
I hope so.
Go fire it up. Let's see what happens. Right, let me get back a little bit. All right, fire away.
Cranking.
Whoa! Okay, yeah, no MAF, it's a little unhappy, yeah, but it fires up. Try again, see if you can get it to go a little bit.
It's not happy.
It's definitely not happy, but it is definitely like, you can hear when it does fire up, it's firing up. Here, hang on, let me try unplugging the MAF. It'll put it into a closed loop.
Yeah.
Okay, so removing this sensor, what it should do, what it does on a lot of cars, is it puts this on a basic program of air and fuel based on, I don't know, stuff. But anyways, it just won't take a reading from this at all because it doesn't exist. And it often makes the car run without the intake. Okay, give it a shot. So cool.
Nice.
I had an idea and it worked well. How often does that happen? Oh man, well hey, congrats. You pulled the engine out a million times and it runs and it sounds great. That's no exhaust, right?
Yeah, no exhaust, just straight headers.
It's just straight headers. It sounds healthy, it sounds great. I think you've essentially rebuilt a Mustang GT. Okay, so we're gonna build a checklist of the things that need to be done before we can drive this car, and in this episode we're gonna go drive this car and see how it does. So main thing right now is the coolant system, and then obviously the intake. We gotta bodge together some sort of intake. In the long run, we just want to buy a good quality aftermarket one, but you know, this is BS for Build, so we gotta just do what we can in the next 30 minutes so we could go play around with our toys. So Oscar is going to be working on the cooling system. There's like a little hose that we got to button up. Yep. Bridging one hose from another hose, two things that got ripped. We got to connect them together. That'll close the system up, and then we'll be able to put fluid in the system. I will go ahead and start working on a fix for the intake and figure out how we can somehow get that mass airflow sensor to sit in a tube that will read correct enough that this thing will actually run and drive. Other than that, we do need to get rid of the windshield, and we'll talk about that later when we get there. Let's get to work. Where to go? More interesting. Thanks, ETS. Well. All right, temporary car parts for the win. We for the air intake, we found a piece of stainless that ETS gave us for our exhaust system. Went down to the store and bought a 3-inch silicone coupler and then stretched it to fit the 3.5, which made it a reducer. And then Oscar cut a hole in this pipe and we just really quickly mounted that in there. Again, this is all temporary. And then we went ahead and filled the cooling system, but Oscar just said we have a leak. So we shall find the leak and fix the problem. Oscar has said, never mind, there is no leak. It's just residual water that was sitting on the frames kind of dripping down. So, well, like I said, we gotta eat lunch, but then let's fire it up and just run it for a while and just make sure everything's gonna work.
Really get the leaks going.
Yeah, really leak test it there. Yeah. Now, this is a reduction. The normal intake tubing is 3.5 inches and we went down to 3. It's gonna tell it has more air passing through than the engine will actually be receiving, which means that it's gonna give it more fuel to compensate for that more air, which means that we're gonna run rich, which means more backfires and crackles and fun stuff like that. And it's not really bad for the engine, so fun times ahead. Probably won't even be noticeable whatsoever. Yeah. Maybe it doesn't like our... Did you put the MAF in backwards?
I think so.
I don't think you did either. You got the sensor towards us. Yeah, no. Let's put the air filter on real quick. I've had that be a problem before, as dumb as it sounds. Alright, take 2. Nope. It's running super rich. Here, I'm gonna take this off and we'll blow some of that crap out of there. Alrighty, go for it. So the car's running great. It sounds really good, but that's with the MAF unplugged and keeps it in that closed loop scenario. So it's just using data tables, preset fuel mixture ratios and stuff like that. When we plug this thing in, it's running extremely rich. Now, we knew it was gonna run a little bit rich, but I didn't really expect it to run that rich. Another problem could be that the fact that it's so close to the front of the pipe. I do know Fords are like really picky with their MAF placement, but we do wanna try and get this thing to run on its own. So we're gonna just one last ditch effort before we go to like some sort of OEM setup. So gonna flip this guy around and then move it back here so the air will be less turbulent on its way in, and it's a lot closer to what the stock one was. We'll see if that changes anything. Big moves, big improvements here. Myth busting Mustang intakes, take 2. It's a little happier. Yeah! Found its sweet spot. Let's try this out real quick. It's running very rich. I can tell by the smoke coming out of the back over there. It's running super rich. So, the wrong size tube. It's pissed off about the wrong size tube. You know what we should do? Alright, well, even though none of this is permanent, we are, for some reason, on a mission to get this car running and having fun. So here is the busted up airbox that we originally found. It's got the correct flange and it's got the correct diameter piping. We're gonna work some magic with all the different silicone reducers and couplers and everything that we have to take this, turn this, do a 90, reduce down, down, down from this like 4 and a something that is this thing. And then we're gonna reduce down until it seals onto that. We'll tape over that hole right there, and it'll actually sit over here, very similar to how it was originally designed, funny enough. And it's gonna suck in air through the broken hole of the air intake box. So as long as it doesn't freak out because it's getting air so freely and has less restriction, as long as it doesn't freak out because of that, it'll be happy. And OEM, it thinks. Let's give it a shot. As Oscar so eloquently said, if this works, we MacGyvered the shit out of this thing. If this works, we deserve to be on those like Junkyard Warrior TV shows. Fire it up, let's see what happens. There you go. Works. It sounds like perfect. Alright, we're ready for a road trip. Let's go to Disneyland. Alright guys, well the car runs. It seems like it runs pretty good. I'm excited about that. The engine is not damaged. We got the windshield out. Now we were gonna go drive it in this episode, but we're actually gonna go ahead and do that tomorrow because it's getting too late today. So I hate to leave you guys on a cliffhanger, but we're gonna be driving the car in the next episode. We'll give it a shakedown. We'll see how that shakedown goes, if we need to make any changes, and if not, then we're just gonna cut the body off of it and full commit to switch into a body style that's 50 years older. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you guys on the next one when we drive this thing for the first time. Peace! Come on!